I always have, that's my cue signal. So like there's a like 5 seconds of awkward pause that does record and then it hits that. So I feel like that's my new theme song.
Nice.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining. I'm with my new friend Rakitha Perera. He is a graphic designer and media specialist at the University of Nevada at Las Vegas. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, how's it going, man?
So this will be fun because we're both graphic designers. So we'll just, take a dump on Comic Sans and Papyrus, and that'll be the whole episode.
Definitely. I mean, there are the pluses and minuses of Comic Sans. Like sometimes, as you might know, some people it's hard for them to read, and Comic Sans really helps them in that cases because it's designed in a way for people to be easily legible for some people.
So, are you telling me that you're defending Comic Sans right now?
I'm not defending Comic Sans by no means.
Well, this was great. Thank you for your time. Shortest podcast in history.
Done deal, case closed.
Yep. I get your point. I understand. Yeah. The legibility of it, the readability, it's certainly there. But with Papyrus.
Avatar. Why'd you do that, James Cameron?
I will always hate him for doing that. Like I enjoyed Avatar.
Was it him or was it his design team though? Who did the culprit here?
You know for a fact that, well, maybe not for a fact, but on a deep level that James Cameron is probably a micromanager.
He is. This is what I'm thinking. When he was writing the script, maybe he just selected Papyrus from the drop down and just on his Word document and he just stayed there and he's like...
And it just stayed there. He very well may have, but like, I wouldn't be surprised if like he threatened to fire people if they tried to use anything other than Comic Sans. If ever there was a movie that was primed for a custom typeface design, it's that one.
That is definitely the one. I mean, there's 5 more coming up, I think.
I think there's about 25 more coming.
So yeah. We'll see if they do any design changes.
Yeah.
Their logo.
You know what they'll do? I know exactly what they'll do. They will add so the Papyrus, so Avatar set in Papyrus is, let's say it's blue, right?
Yeah.
They will add a stroke to that typeface.
No.
And it'll have like a 2.5 stroke density and it'll be set in, I don't know, like
don't put a gradient
cotton candy red.
Gradients are the new thing. Have you seen the new Firefox logo that they just put out there?
Yes, yeah.
People are going at the evolution of that one for sure.
Yeah. Tear them apart.
Hey,
yeah. Well, anyway, this has devolved quickly. No, this is actually perfect.
Any conversation with me just goes whoa.
Oh, please. This will be the first of many. So in this episode, we're crapping on Papyrus and Comic Sans. Next episode, we'll take a heavy look at gradients and vibrating colors.
Yep.
And then in our ultimate episode to close out the trilogy, we'll talk about the starbursts.
Oh no, the lens flares? Are we talking about
starbursts and lens flares? Yeah.
Oh man, that was my go-to. Like the early days of Photoshop when it was just like a free trial. Like first thing I would do is just put the lens flare thing.
Everything would get a lens flare.
Oh, yeah. Got to. Almost.
Early 2000s, everything had a lens flare.
Yep.
Yeah.
J.J. Abrams. That's where that's coming from.
Well, anyway, Rakitha, how did let's get into it. How did you what was your entry point into the design and marketing or even higher ed industry?
Oh, it's all been like a hobby for me when it all started. It was just me and my friends playing around when we were like 12, 13. We would just have that free version of Photoshop Elements. You know, when you buy a computer back in the day, it's there
Photo
with
Deluxe.
yeah, Photo
Yep.
Deluxe, Coral, and the whole suite of all these free Adobe products that were just there to get you started. It was like the entry level drug. But my dad is a jeweler, and he did a lot of appraisals for people. So he would basically take a lot of photos, and he would lay out this little Word document. And that was my entry point. Literally, the entry point to it was basically cleaning up photos for my dad, just clearing out the background and figuring out how to do the levels and all those things in Photoshop. And then when it came to high school, I think the last 2 years I had options to take commercial design one, and then it just went on from there. That was my real hook and sinker for graphic design. The teacher was amazing, and I just fell in love from there. But when it came to college, I had basically ditched everything, went for engineering. That didn't work out. So here I am back at graphic design, and I'm working for the Office of Information Technology at UNLV, doing all the media stuff at this point.
You're working with my dear friend Trish.
Yes, Trisha Harrison. She was my boss at one point. Teams changed now.
Yep.
She's still in the team, but she's in her own communication unit at this point.
Listen,
moving up the ladder.
She's still your boss, just like still
There
she's
you go.
mine. I haven't seen her since 2007, but you know, she's still the boss.
Definitely. I do have to give her credit for opening up like a couple of doors for me, especially when it came to the teaching, the classes that I've been teaching on campus and the continuing ed department. She was the one who referred me to their people, and now I'm doing that stuff as well. So thanks.
That's
Trish.
great. Thanks, Trish. So I'm glad you got some of that graphic design experience in high school, because a lot of the students that I've had over the past decade, they don't come to school with that. You know, they're taught that, they're not even, I mean, they're introduced to it in their freshman year, then they gradually learn more as they go through the motions of college. But having that foundation work up front, especially on the software side, I think sets you up for so much success later on.
Definitely.
You know,
and there's a whole lot of things to go with self-learning too. That I consider myself self-taught to a point where before, I mean, it's mainly software based. I learned the softwares, but when it came to technique, that's when the official education kicked in.
Right.
I just put things, back in the day, I would just put margins all the way to the edge of the freaking frame. And someone
God help you if you include a bleed every once in a while.
Oh my goodness. And then one of my other bosses was like, hey, margins, they're fine. You're okay to put margins on things. And I was like, oh, okay. So, but before that, definitely when it came to software, and then me and my friends would make a whole bunch of little short films and videos back in the day using After Effects, Premiere. So all that was self-taught online tutorials. We would just see a tutorial and be like, we got to do that. Let's make clones of ourselves. Let's put layers. So it does help a lot before you do come into classes, if you know your way around how to navigate a software, basically.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I got my started. I've been a designer since 11.
Wow.
So almost 25 years, really.
Definitely.
And it's actually kind of cool. So like, and I know you can relate to that. So like so at the point I'm at now, I can actually say I've been doing design for majority of my life. And you know, there are people in their 50s that are like, yeah, I've been a designer for 25 years. And I'm just thinking like, when I'm your age, this will be like my entire life. Yeah.
Exactly.
So to have like a discipline just kind of wrap you up and control you or having some involvement in it for most of your life is actually kind of cool. And absolutely gives you a leg up in terms of occupations and jobs, especially if like you're an ambitious person, right?
Definitely.
So I know you know some of the people that I'm about to describe, but like there are some designers that they graduate and they're like, hey, I found a job. I'm good here for the next 30 years.
The grind,
the same thing.
They just do the same old thing. Yep.
Right. And you're elevating in your career, right? So
Yes.
like you're I don't know where you're classified as or what you're classified as in the higher ed system, but like you know, there are places to go. So
Oh yeah.
what are your career goals?
I mean, I started as a student worker, but
Yeah.
at OIT at UNLV, and then people just saw me just going around taking pictures and making all these kooky signs for our classrooms and stuff, not whatnot, and they took me on as an intern for the communications unit. And from there on, I've been becoming graphic designer 1, graphic designer 2, which is the current classification that I'm holding.
Okay.
And I guess career goals would be eventually to be like a director of media sort of
Mhm.
position where I could just have a team of people. Because as you mentioned, like as we get old and things completely, I mean, continuously evolve to new things, and at one point we have to bring in younger talent because they are obviously going to be better than you
Right.
at what you do. So at that point, it's better to take your experience and just take a step back and have the younger generation do most of the work and just basically
Yeah.
direct them at that point.
Yeah, you do the direction, you do the strategy, you know,
Yeah.
the upper level administration types of stuff.
Exactly.
Absolutely, that's definitely where you know, it's interesting. Like when you start a business, like you're involved in that already. Like,
Yeah.
so I'm on my 4th company,
Nice.
sold or merged the previous 3, and um, I'm on my 4th now, and like I don't know, like I feel kind of tired with it. Like I'll always be, I have the spirit of an entrepreneur. I'll always be thinking in that kind of mindset.
Yeah.
But every time you make a new startup, it's like, oh my god, like
Gotta
this
cleanse the
is so
whole
exciting. But I literally have to do every single thing, and I'm at a point where like I grow when I have a good team behind me, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
So if I can build a good team, then you know I can pass off my experiences to them and vice versa, and that kind of strengthens the whole unit. So I've been, you know, the past 2 companies I've had, I've started with other people.
Mm.
So I'd have partners, and fortunately, for the most part, that's worked out, and especially with the latest iteration of my entrepreneurship career, you know, with Plus Public, my partner and I have been in business for 3 years, and that's
Wow.
excellent.
Yeah, that is. That's it.
But we also found like that really unique contrast.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, I'm the extrovert, I'm the salesperson, I'm the presentation person, the public persona, if you will.
Definitely.
He's the analytical, you know,
Behind the scenes type of
behind the scene, analytical, administrative. He does our books, which I'm so glad I don't have to do that anymore. But he's also the introverted part of the half, you know, and it works out really, really well.
Definitely.
So yeah, so I hope that like within my position in higher ed, the higher up I go, I'll be able to get a team that I can.
Yeah, because I've had the pleasure of working with like a full-on team, and when I contrast it to where I work at, just me and one other intern basically just doing most of the work, it's just a world of difference to just have, hey, you're taking care of this, you're taking care of this element, you're taking care of photo, there's the video person to do the scripts and everything. There's a whole team, whereas at work it's just me and my Julie, who's basically our intern in our office, who's doing the script, the videos, we're carrying the gear across campus. It's just 2 people doing all that stuff. It does take a toll. I mean, at the end of the day, it's a lot of work.
I'm curious. So you work on a bigger team, or as a part of a bigger team than I do. I'm kind of a marketing shop of one.
Oh wow, yeah. So definitely we have a little bit more than one in our team.
Yeah. Well, the way that Pitt Business works is the graduate school has their own marketing team, and then the undergraduate school has their own. I'm on the undergraduate side, and it's basically myself and my supervisor.
Wow.
And my predecessor, he came from journalism.
Wow.
So he wrote for little local papers and stuff like that. Great dude. And I come in with this entirely different skill set. It's more visual and interactive and design based. And I've had a lot of opportunity to innovate and actually be creative. With your position, is your creativity, your creative potential stifled at all? Or like, if you come to the table with an idea, do you have the opportunity to develop it?
I feel like at this point, I've established myself enough to the point where they're like, all right, that makes sense. Whenever I put something out there, they'll take my
We're just going to listen to
suggestions.
him.
Yeah. It also, yeah, it definitely, I mean, maybe 5 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. But now that they've seen the work that we put out and the amount of reception that we've gotten with those pieces, at this point, they're like, all right, we'll maybe listen to him at this point. But I remember at one point, one of my bosses and I had this, it was a cybersecurity project that we had to do. And we were like, hey, Vegas, the college campus, what's better for security and social media? That was the project, cybersecurity and social media. So we were like, let's design a whole bunch of condom wrappers and just put social media logos and just plaster it all over campus. And our boss was like, this is the last time you're going to do this, but we're going to let this one slide. And we got it out there. We had some turnout where people were actually responding to that campaign and got fairly decent.
So they did that. That was in the Tiger King documentary.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I saw that one.
You remember that? Yeah, he put his, oh my God, he put his face on a condom wrapper. Oh my God.
Idea, but yeah, that's one of those things where we were like, let's not talk about it too much, but it happened. Lessons learned.
You know what though? Like, and that's such a great sort of example of like, that was probably an extreme of where you could go with that, but it still happened.
Yep.
And all right, so I kind of have a stake in this. So from my point of view, and here's the preface of my point of view. So I'm coming at this from a practitioner. I'm coming to higher ed marketing staff with these two perspectives. The first of which is I was a tenured professor. Part of your elevation, your leveling up through academia is published work, awards, grants. It's very intrinsic, this level of success. Like it comes from you. You have to produce these things and get them approved by people. That's the peer review, right? Yep. That's the struggle, the challenge. That's what makes the research side of academic teaching, higher ed teaching, difficult.
Yep.
So there's that. And then also from the practitioner side, looking at all of the people that are better than you, like your design heroes, whoever they may be, like looking at them and saying like, man, I love this guy, but I also hate them. So like when you feel that level of rage, like, oh my God, that's so good. I wish I could do that. When you get that jealous, that's when you found like a good point of inspiration, right?
Yes, indeed.
So when I came to the marketing staff side, I'm thinking like, who are the people that I'm going to be looking for? Who are my design heroes going to be, or my marketing heroes? Where are they? And I'm having trouble pinning that down. Like there are so many people in this space practicing one specific thing over another, or they claim to be like the absolute best at it. And my sense of things is that like, I'm going to have a hard time finding those inspirational people because everything's just kind of diluted.
Yeah, and also it is very saturated with this social media and because everyone's putting out so much content and they're fucking amazing at this point. Every profile that you look at, it's just elevated to the next level, and they feed off each other in this continual progression of design.
Yeah, so like I'm looking at Arby's and Wendy's. They're killing it in their social media game. But So I'm looking at stuff like that, but we all are. And so I don't have a sense yet of who in the higher ed space I should be looking at as like inspiration.
Yeah.
Other than, my home institution, which objectively I think they do their social media marketing really, really well. And you've got a fun brand that does a lot of engagement. But, it's not like you and I could talk about, I don't know, Chip Kid, right? Chip Kid?
I'm not familiar with it.
Okay, all right. Well, we could talk about any kind of notable designer, and we could share our frustration over how good they are.
Oh,
and
man.
In comparison, how terrible we are, right?
That's what I always like. Me being based in Las Vegas, it changes the game. I mean, you're a mile away from our campus is the Vegas Strip, where you basically have content developed by some of the best designers in the world. You have even when like a bus wrap to a billboard, it's all coming from, I'm assuming, the best agencies around the globe. So that's what I'm surrounded by. And once again, a block away from that is our institution. And when we put out our social media or any point of like graphics or any elements out there, I personally want to stand up to that same quality of things that people are used to seeing, because our population's out there seeing all these things bombarded at them literally everywhere they go. So when they see that and see something that's coming from a university and they're like, what the hell, this is a completely different ballgame. So I always look at those things and I try to mimic them just to an extent, or at least have the same quality of content that are out there, just to be up par with basically some of the best designers that are out there.
Well, I mean, your brand is only going to give you so much opportunity to innovate, right? And so knowing when you can push and then when you have to retract, it's a balancing act. And that's largely an organic, instinctive kind of thing. But the other aspect to this is, I was surrounded by excellent teachers and designers whom were always submitting their work to competitions for consideration and publication. And I think that, that is a good thing. Like, if you, Rakitha, are not submitting your work to competitions, you should.
Yeah, definitely. I haven't had the chance recently, but a couple of years back, I've always put in short films, photo submissions. There have been some design work that I've put into like small little websites when they run their little picture of the week or something like that. I would always shoot something. I've won a couple of the film festivals, and it's been really fun to reap the benefits, the rewards of it. So yeah, definitely. And the fact of just keeping up with the people and just competing and getting feedback, I think that's the main thing that I've realized in the official learning of the art, the design learning, where I go into a classroom and we do a project, and then the whole class just sits around and basically critiques it. And I think that's the big thing that I've learned from actual graphic design classes, just to take criticism, to work with other people and to improve the product. Because now that I've seen that, I look back at some of the other designers that I work with who haven't had the formal education background. The moment you tell something or give them some feedback, they would immediately close up and take it as a certain, like an offense to them. So
yeah, this just came up with one of my colleagues. She felt that she basically read her teaching evals, and she said that her students felt bullied when they had design critique in class.
You gotta have tough skin when it comes to critique.
Yeah, and she contacted me. She's just like, how do I work with these students? And I'm just like,
that's tough. I mean, that's the thing.
It's tough because they're in a place where they don't understand that constructive critique is an asset.
It's definitely
not
part of the process.
Yeah, it's a part of the process. It's a part of the game. And, so they don't understand its necessity. And because they don't understand its necessity, they are not competitive. If they are not competitive, they are not ambitious for their careers or for themselves. So their growth potential will be limited. Right? So yeah, I don't know how you overcome that other than, you know, the simple fact that I had to tell her some of your students are not meant to be designers.
Yeah, because design is definitely, criticism in design is definitely part of the process, and just I've had instructors call my work pathetic at some point.
Dude, so all right, I will always remember this because this kid eventually did drop out of design school. But one of the projects I had them do is they had to choose a local area nonprofit. And they had to use that nonprofit's branding. And if the nonprofit had terrible branding, they could redesign it.
Improve it. Nice.
But they had to make an infographic print, like vertical printed poster. And then they had to make an animated version of it in Adobe Animate.
Okay. Cool.
And then they had to make a web-based version of that infographic. So they got to experience one subject matter across 3 different medium, right?
Wow.
And the poster was first because that sets the standard for everything.
Yeah, the print piece.
He designs it, prints it out, and I was at wit's end. I was like, this looks like you designed it in Microsoft Word.
Oh no.
Like, and the rest of the class, they're just like, oh. And he's just like, well, what's the problem with designing in Microsoft Word? And I'm just like, how do I work with it? How do I do this? Like, he didn't even realize that was such a profound insult. Like, I wasn't saying it to be insulting. Like, I was literally just describing what I saw. And sure enough, he made all the charts in Microsoft Word.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, dude, part of this experience was to design infographics in Illustrator.
The software that are designed to be designing.
Right. So, yeah, he never let me live that down eventually.
Oh, man. I mean, the whole point is to get the feedback and then improve upon it. Like, end of the day, the instructor who did call my work pretty bad, I went back and reworked it and then came back and it was like, all right, here we go. Now we're in the right track. So that's part of the learning process, and definitely criticism will make your product at the end of the day.
So relative to that, and coming back to like this awards thing, I've had a lot of opportunity to talk with higher ed marketers, right? And I found that, so like, I'm in a fortunate situation where like I've been given a lot of creative opportunity, and I have a supervisor who values my skills, but also he believes in the work. So like I've been able to submit the work to competitions or even to like higher ed web or Social Fresh to actually present it to people. And there are other folks that I've met that have been doing higher ed marketing for 10 years, 15 years. And they're like, yeah, I've never done any of that. And I'm just like, I don't know if there's like a lack of belief in the work, or like they just never saw the value in doing those things. And to be fair, like I recognize myself as a competitive person.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know, but similar to a design critique, I find value in that competitive atmosphere, you know, because that helps me grow. So,
and at the end of the day, you could just, it's bragging rights too. Like, hey, we did this campaign, we won the best award that's possible for it.
Absolutely. Like,
just put it out there, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, I mean, you talk to your news feed and your PR people on campus and say like, hey, we won an award for this thing. Do you care? They're like, absolutely. This is awesome.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love the content.
So how do we get, go ahead.
They do run like a weekly news cycle, and they do need content to put out there. So,
well, it's, you know, I mean, the accolades, I think, make everyone feel better.
Oh yeah.
You know, and from my point of view, it isn't so much like, yeah, I won, yes. It's we won as a team.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And your work has value beyond just doing it for your day job.
Yep.
And I really want to encourage. So I've seen a few organizations have competitions. I don't see a lot for like I see I think higher ed marketing and design has some pretty good competitions out there. I don't see any for social media.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I know they're out there somewhere,
The
but
Webbies,
I don't.
the Webbies are out there, but that's
The Webbies, the Cuppies. I think even Social Fresh does, or they want to do their own. But like the higher ed,
they're not at the level of like PRSAs or any of
right. AMA, PRSA, like I think something like that should exist. And I hope I'm wrong and completely ignorant in this situation. But you know, social media marketing on the higher ed side can be so draining.
Oh yes.
Because you're on all the time.
It just looks, it doesn't have the quality or the value or the look and feel that other companies and other PR people are doing. It's just
right.
That's why every time that I put out something on social media, I want it to look sharp. I want it to look clean. Even the photography, I want it to have that nice contrast. It's not like a cell phone photo. I would just go the extra mile to make that stand out, because you're just scrolling on a feed and you're like a fly to a light. That's basic human instinct. You know, you see the brightest, flashiest thing, and you're like, all right, I will invest my couple of seconds looking at that on my little scrolling adventure.
Yeah. Right? Everything it needs to be like very finely curated, and if you have that standard of quality and you put that work into it, it's one thing to have fans who appreciate your social media feed, and especially peer practitioners like you and I. But like I think that there should just be some further acknowledgement, because regardless of us being in higher ed, it is absolutely brand management. And you know, but it's a specialized type of brand management.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that there needs to be some acknowledgement there, some larger level reward. You know
definitely.
what I mean?
And your primary audience is quite the tricky audience too. They're very information hungry. They're always looking at these things, and they're definitely used to seeing quality content. So in the higher ed departments and the realm of higher ed, I think everyone needs to elevate that game up and be on that clean design output.
Well, I think we just worked out our mission statement.
There you go.
Yeah, we got you take the western part of the states. I'll take the East Coast. Yeah,
let's go for it.
Yeah. So moving on, what advice do you have for graphic designers, marketing professionals that have either just graduated or they're looking for internships, so they're maybe senior year now? What advice do you have for them, especially entering an economy that can't support them or doesn't have room for them right now? What would you say?
It's tough. I mean, we touched base on this prior to. I mean, the continuous thirst, that's what I'd like to call it. Just be hungry for it. Just because you got yourself your level of education, don't take it easy. Don't be like, all right, this is it. I'm done. I'm a designer. I'll be good for the rest of my career. It continually evolves. It's almost daily evolution of our industry when it comes to software, when it comes to techniques. UI UX is continually evolving, because there's touch and then there's little haptics that are giving feedback to you on devices, and just knowing how to incorporate that into your interfaces or designs, and just color theories and just the look and feel of it, and all these new techniques. I mean, there's a new piece of software that's coming out pretty much every month that will be like, here, I'll be able to do interface design better than Adobe XD or Sketch, and they'll just be putting things out, and in turn those softwares will make your product look better than if you designed it on something that doesn't have to design something on. So my thing is just be hungry and just always continue to learn. That's what I prescribe to. I'll always do tutorials. If I'm just hanging around, I'll at least watch someone else do a different technique. Because even Adobe, they're pushing updates. Every version of their product updates have so many new tools that even I myself wouldn't have known if I didn't see some of these people who are putting out tutorials on, I mean, YouTube. It's free, it's out there. Just be on the cutting edge of what's going out there is my advice. Then in turn, once you know how to navigate those things and create some good content, people will recognize it and will get you on their teams.
So that's such a great point. So like you could be doing a lot of professional and personal development during the during the self-isolation phase of our lives, but then also channeling that into actual meaningful content. Like you can't expect anyone to care as much as you do about the things that you're doing. And if you need more of a reason to do something than just professional development, then you have to convert that into creating something. So that could be, I don't know, a website with a blog or a product or something. I completely get that. It's like learning new things just for the sake of learning. That particular personality is very unique. I won't say rare, but it's certainly unique, and it takes a lot of discipline.
Yes.
And this as well as I do, graphic designers do not like to read.
We're picture people, Where's the pretty pictures then?
Right, where are the pictures at? Yeah. So like, it's interesting you bring up tutorials, and this is not a knock on you, because I enjoy tutorials just as much for likely the same reasons. There was a point where I just didn't really care for reading books, and mostly because I didn't care about it as much. I still did it, but I didn't care about it as much because our industry changes so frequently. And because it does, it's just like, well, I could read this book about software that is immediately out of date as soon as it's printed.
Yes.
And, when I first started teaching, I would have a book with Dreamweaver and stuff like that. And at a certain point, I just said,
Photoshop.
Okay, for all of my classes, no more books. I'm done with books forever. And I'm especially done dealing with the bookstore.
And when I teach my Photoshop and design classes, the school recommends the book. I don't know if I have a say in it. Maybe I do. I've just haven't realized it. And kind of in the first day of class, I'd be like, hey, the book is recommended, but it's not required, because as you said, the book that's in the syllabus is already out of date 2 years ago. So it's no point at this point. I usually point people at YouTube, and I wouldn't recommend a certain person to follow, because they get out of date eventually too. So I would just be like, hey, just type it in Google and just find a tutorial on what you gotta.
Von Glitchka, amazing illustrator.
Nice.
Aaron Draplin, great.
Oh, Draplin, yes.
Draplin, solid branding dude.
Love his guy.
Good typographer, excellent typographer. And the list goes on.
Yep, definitely. There's so much talent out there, and so many people who are sharing their content for most of the time for free. So why not use it? I mean, if you do have access to things like LinkedIn Learn or Linda, I don't know what their new branding.
They're the same now. Actually.
Yeah. So things like that, and there's so many subscription services too. But I'm not saying rely on those 100%. I do love those, because I'm a hands-on type of person. Whenever I get the option to do an online classes versus a physical class where I get to actually, deal with ink and just put things down and do like some prints, it's a whole different method and discipline, I would say, of learning. And that changes the game, because you could just watch someone do it and get some of their advice, or get your hands dirty and get that experience for yourself, because you can't really teach someone how to screen print a t-shirt from a YouTube channel, where you got to learn it. You got to feel that ink go through those little screens and all that. So
well, that's so process driven too.
yeah.
I mean, you have to follow the steps, right?
Yes.
But so like when I'm teaching web design, I really put a premium on students reverse engineering things.
Oh yes.
Breaking stuff and then trying to fix it and trying to understand the logic behind that.
That's also been a start for me too. I would always go to these websites and watch these movies and always wanted to like recreate that look. So we would always try to figure out these weird ways to, back in Dreamy where I would make all these flash sites that didn't even have flash in them, but I would just mimic the look with all these hotspots on the images and stuff.
The image maps, yeah.
Yes.
Oh god.
Oh,
yeah.
remember those? Oh man. Then
well,
HTML5 came around.
Oh yeah, and thank you for that. Yeah, I HTML and CSS is making just things so much easier.
It's
but like
cleaner too.
Yeah, but if you've never done web design before, it's quite a system to learn very quickly.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
I always pride myself on the fact that like if I'm teaching an intro level web design class, I can get students to actually build their own website, multi-page website inside of 2 weeks.
Oh wow.
There was a period where it was the first 2 months of the semester we could do that, but the software has just gotten so much more streamlined that it's just profoundly easy.
I mean, there's so many other things that are involved with it too, like Adobe XD. You don't even need to know full HTML if you're a designer, especially if you're a designer. You can just put together like a mock-up and then bounce it off with the team before you actually send it to the developer or someone. That way you get to know the structure of the website, the navigation, and how it works. You could use it, test it, and then at this point, you're doing all this without any knowledge of HTML, and it really helps. Most designers they don't have that talent or the skill set to do a full build, like a full stack on a website. So those software like Sketch and XD really helps people to translate their designs into like basically review state before they send it.
Right, and wrapping up on this point, and I tell this to my students too, because the process you just described is what they will experience in reality.
Oh, yes.
They can do all the front end work all they want, and if they know how to do the coding, then they can speak the language with the developers.
Oh, yes.
Right? Yep. And that makes everybody happy because there's
so much easier.
Everything is made plain, and communication is clear, and especially with developers, communication must be clear, right?
And sometimes the back end would limit you too. Sometimes maybe the developer doesn't have the tools that are needed to create this crazy carousel or this crazy idea that you have. So knowing the capabilities of the back end and what it can handle and putting that into your design and incorporating those things definitely helps the developer as well, because now you know the developer's limits and you're designing to those limits instead of like making some crazy out of this world design, and the developers can just look at you and be like, yeah, that's not happening.
Well, yeah, I mean, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
And that is a concept that if you're not familiar with it and you're a designer or a web designer, you'll learn eventually.
Oh, yes.
Especially as the technology becomes more advanced.
Yep.
So, seeing what is happening in WordPress right now, like, with all the drag and drop builders, I mean, at a certain point, when is Automatic, the company that owns WordPress, just going to buy these companies?
Oh, yeah.
And just wrap them into...
Up till 2 years ago, I had my own WordPress, but I've ditched it and I've gone to like Squarespace. It's so much easier to...
Well, yeah, it's easier... Right. Yeah, it's easier. And I've seen more higher ed departments and like special divisions use Wix or Squarespace or Weebly.
Oh,
right. Many are still in Drupal or WordPress.
Yeah.
I mean, I built a microsite using Divi and WordPress, and I got it up right quick.
Yeah,
and that's fine.
I've been using Simplice. Have you tried that?
I have not. No.
Oh, that's a good one. It's designed by the same guy who made basically Spotify. So they're doing their own builder. it's almost like Divi, but you could do a whole lot of stuff with Simplease, and it pairs really well with WordPress, and it takes WordPress to a different level.
I'll check it out.
Yep, definitely.
So on our next call, I'll give you my review of that.
There you go.
Hey, Rakitha, this was awesome. Thank you so much for your
Definitely.
time.
Thanks again. Thanks for having me.
We will definitely do this again.
Cool.
So
once we find some time.
That's right. Now get back to work.
There it is. I'm at work already, so it's just a button away. Have a good one, man.